Are you tired of being lied to about the true cost of carbon taxes? Do you want to uncover the truth behind the deception? Then stay tuned. Because in this video, we're exposing the carbon tax deception and revealing the real agenda behind these so-called environmental policies. From the politicians pushing for their implementation to the special interests benefiting from them, we'll leave no stone unturned as we uncover the truth about the carbon tax deception. So get ready, because this is a video you don't want to miss. So, why do we think carbon taxes are a bad idea? Well, there are a few reasons. First and foremost, carbon taxes disproportionately impact low and middle-income individuals and businesses. These groups often don't have the means to easily switch to alternative, cleaner energy sources, and as a result, they end up shouldering a disproportionate burden of the costs associated with carbon taxes. This can lead to higher prices for necessities like transportation and heating, and can even force some businesses to close their doors. Another issue with carbon taxes is their effectiveness in actually reducing carbon emissions. While it's true that carbon taxes can incentivize individuals and businesses to reduce their carbon footprint, there is debate as to whether they are the most effective means of achieving this goal. Some argue that other policy measures, such as regulations or incentives for clean energy, might be more effective at driving down carbon emissions. Finally, carbon taxes can have unintended consequences, such as encouraging businesses to move to countries with lower carbon prices, resulting in a net increase in global emissions rather than a reduction. All of these issues raise serious concerns about the efficacy and fairness of carbon taxes as a policy measure. So while they may seem like a simple and straightforward solution to the problem of climate change, they come with a host of complications and potential negative impacts that need to be carefully considered. Now, you may be wondering who is behind the push for carbon taxes. One group that has been particularly vocal in advocating for their implementation is Americans for Carbon Dividends, or ACD. ACD is a nonprofit organization that claims to be a bipartisan, market-based solution to climate change. However, a closer look at the organization raises some red flags. ACD is funded in part by major fossil fuel companies, including ExxonMobil and Chevron. These companies stand to benefit financially from the implementation of carbon taxes, as they would be able to pass on the costs to consumers through higher energy prices. It's no surprise, then, that ACD has been advocating for carbon taxes and promoting them as a market-based solution. But ACD's ties to fossil fuel interests don't end there. The organization is also supported by a number of conservative think tanks and advocacy groups, many of which have received funding from fossil fuel interests in the past. This raises questions about the true motivations behind ACD's push for carbon taxes and whether they are truly acting in the best interests of the public or simply looking out for the bottom line of their fossil fuel industry backers. So, as you can see, the carbon tax deception runs deep, with special interests and organizations like ACD working behind the scenes to promote their implementation. It's up to us to stay vigilant and to question the true motives behind these so-called solutions to climate change. So, how exactly do carbon taxes work and who do they impact? At their most basic level, carbon taxes are a tax on carbon producers such as refineries, mines, oil and gas production, and shipping. These industries are responsible for a significant portion of carbon emissions, and carbon taxes aim to reduce those emissions by making it more expensive for these industries to produce and distribute carbon-intensive products. The theory behind carbon taxes is simple. If it becomes more expensive to produce carbon-intensive products, companies will have an incentive to reduce their emissions and switch to cleaner, more sustainable energy sources. This, in turn, will help reduce global carbon emissions and combat climate change. However, there are several issues with this approach. For one, carbon taxes can lead to higher energy prices for consumers, as the costs of production are passed on to them. This can be particularly burdensome for low and middle-income individuals and businesses that may not have the means to easily switch to alternative energy sources. In addition, Carbon taxes can also have unintended consequences, such as encouraging companies to move their operations to countries with lower carbon prices, resulting in a net increase in global emissions rather than a reduction. One of the major concerns about carbon taxes is that the costs will ultimately be passed on to consumers, making everything from transportation to heating more expensive. This is because, as we mentioned earlier, carbon taxes are a tax on carbon producers such as refineries, mines, and oil and gas production. These industries are responsible for a significant portion of carbon emissions, and carbon taxes aim to reduce those emissions by making it more expensive for these industries to produce and distribute carbon-intensive products. As a result, the costs of production are likely to be passed on to consumers through higher energy prices. This can be particularly burdensome for low and middle-income individuals and businesses that may not have the means to easily switch to alternative energy sources. But it's not just energy prices that could be impacted by carbon taxes. The costs of carbon-intensive products, such as food and clothing, could also rise as the cost of transportation and production increases. This could lead to a ripple effect, with the costs of many everyday necessities going up as a result of carbon taxes. One argument often made in favor of carbon taxes is that they will help fight climate change by making fossil energy more expensive and incentivizing the use of cleaner energy sources. However, there are serious concerns about the disproportionate impact that carbon taxes could have on low and middle-income individuals and businesses. These groups often don't have the means to easily switch to alternative, cleaner energy sources, and as a result, they end up shouldering a disproportionate burden of the costs associated with carbon taxes. This can lead to higher prices for necessities like transportation and heating, and can even force some businesses to close their doors. In addition, the regressive nature of carbon taxes means that they disproportionately impact those who can least afford it. While the wealthy may be able to absorb the higher costs of carbon-intensive products, for many low and middle-income individuals and families, these price increases could be a real burden. Many critics of carbon taxes argue that they are not actually designed to combat climate change, but rather to redistribute wealth from the poor and middle class to the wealthy and special interests. These groups stand to benefit financially from the implementation of carbon taxes, as they would be able to pass on the costs to consumers through higher energy prices. In this way, carbon taxes could serve as a wealth redistribution scheme, transferring wealth from those who can least afford it to those who are already well off. Furthermore, the lack of transparency and accountability in the way that carbon tax revenues are used raises further concerns about the potential for these funds to be misused. Without proper oversight, there is a risk that carbon tax revenues could be used to line the pockets of special interests, rather than being reinvested in clean energy and environmental protections. So, while carbon taxes may seem like a simple and straightforward solution to the problem of climate change, they come with a host of complications and potential negative impacts on wealth redistribution that need to be carefully considered. Another concern about carbon taxes is their potential impact on employment and businesses. Carbon-intensive industries, such as oil and gas production and manufacturing, could be hit particularly hard by carbon taxes. As the costs of production increase, these industries may be forced to lay off workers or even go out of business. This could result in significant job losses and have a ripple effect throughout the economy. In addition, carbon taxes could also incentivize companies to relocate to countries with lower carbon prices in order to avoid the higher costs of production. This could result in a net loss of jobs and businesses in the countries that implement carbon taxes as companies move their operations to more favorable locations. It's no secret that many large corporations have come out in support of carbon taxes as a means of combating climate change. But why are these companies so eager to support these policy measures? One possibility is that they are simply trying to avoid being sued. As the impacts of climate change become more and more evident, it's likely that companies will face increasing pressure and legal action over their contributions to greenhouse gas emissions. By supporting carbon taxes and positioning themselves as part of the solution, these companies may be trying to head off potential lawsuits and deflect criticism of their environmental record. Another possibility is that these companies are using their support for carbon taxes as a way to virtue signal and improve their public image. By publicly supporting policy measures that are seen as environmentally friendly, these companies may be trying to burnish their reputation and appeal to consumers who are increasingly concerned about the environment. Regardless of their motivations, it's important to critically examine the claims of large corporations when it comes to carbon taxes and other environmental policy measures. It's possible that their support may not be genuine, and that they may have other agendas at play. According to reports, ACD expects to spend $10 million in the first year to promote the idea of carbon taxes. This is a significant sum of money, and it's clear that ACD is willing to invest heavily in promoting its agenda. But where is this money coming from? ACD is funded in part by major fossil fuel companies, including ExxonMobil and Chevron. These companies stand to benefit financially from the implementation of carbon taxes, as they would be able to pass on the costs to consumers through higher energy prices. It's no surprise, then, that ACD has been advocating for carbon taxes and promoting them as a market-based solution. As we've been discussing, there are serious concerns about the impact of carbon taxes on consumers, businesses, and employment. But there are also broader concerns about the potential for carbon taxes to be a large-scale public deception. Many proponents of carbon taxes claim that they are a simple and straightforward solution to the problem of climate change. But a closer look at the evidence raises doubts about their effectiveness and fairness. From the disproportionate impact on low and middle-income individuals and businesses to the potential for unintended consequences and job losses, there are a host of complications and negative impacts associated with carbon taxes. Furthermore, the involvement of special interests and organizations like Americans for Carbon Dividends, ACD, funded in part by major fossil fuel companies, raises questions about the true motivations behind the push for carbon taxes. Is this really about combating climate change, or is it about protecting the interests of those who stand to benefit financially from the implementation of these policy measures? We hope that this video has helped to shed some light on the carbon tax deception and the complex web of special interests and motivations behind it. From the disproportionate impact on low and middle-income individuals and businesses to the potential for unintended consequences and job losses, it's clear that carbon taxes are not the simple and straightforward solution they are often claimed to be. Thank you for watching another episode of Conspiracy or Reality. We hope that this video has helped you to think critically about the topic at hand and to question whether the conventional wisdom is really what it seems. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and join us on our journey to uncover the truth about the world around us. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious and keep questioning.